welcome to another WiZDOM update. My name is Andrew Kubank and I'm fortunate enough to be one of the National Directors of WiZDOM. So this video is number 5 in the Bank Secret series, which again is just a bunch of secrets that we've learned the bank keeps from all of you over the decades and decades and decades we've done business with banks. And we think that if you have a good understanding of some of these secrets, why they do the things that they do and the way they go about it, it absolutely helps set you up to be as successful as possible, leveraging on banks, to maximize your property journey. So this secret is all about, there are other type of lendings that we, the bank, don't offer, which may actually help you with this situation. So the truth is the banks are absolute experts at what they do, but they have virtually no concept of what happens outside of their four walls. And so there are lots of different types of lending, lots of different types of policy. And if that bank happens to not have that type of lending or that type of policy, they often don't even know that it exists. And very, very common is that they won't even recommend that or let you know about that, even though it might be a really good fit for your situation. Now, look, truthfully, I find that a little bit disappointing as a finance professional, but I can certainly understand, why they only ever focus on what they do and never ever comment on what happens outside of their four walls. But I'm here to tell you that they often know this, and the reality is there's tons of different type of lending that you may or may not be available for. So just because a particular lender says no, or a particular lender says, hey, we can't help with that, or whatever, don't assume that that is relative to, the entire market, because that is absolutely not the case. So look, just a few ideas of what that lending looks like is this. There's lease doc policy, there's low doc policy, and self-managed super fund lending. And they're just 3 very quick examples of the types of things that I'm talking about. So not every bank does low doc, not every bank does lease doc, and not every bank does SMSF. So very quickly, well, what are they? Low doc lending is all about, or certainly was born from, where lending could happen where self-employed people didn't necessarily have the paperwork to be able to support borrowing money today. So what I mean by that is this: either they were starting their business out and it's in the early stages, so they haven't got to the point where they're starting to produce financial documents, tax returns and financial statements for a given financial year. Or alternatively, it can just be that the self-employed people have a lot of things going on and are a little bit behind when it comes to their taxation obligations. And so low doc lending was literally a case of, or it still is a case of, where we can't necessarily give good formal financial statements and tax returns, but we can have an accountant or an external finance professional be able to verify what a self-employed person earns through other knowledge, being able to see management statements and Xero and MyOb and all of those kind of things, to be able to get comfortable with the fact that the self-employed person earns this particular level, and then go on and declare that amount with regard to using that as income for the purposes of borrowing. So that's a really specific bit of policy which not every lender has. And so if you are self-employed, or if you have an ABN and you've had that for greater than 12 months, potentially you're at the start of your self-employed journey, or alternately you are self-employed but you're just way behind on your tax returns, don't immediately think that excludes all borrowing from you, because there are other bits of policy that you could be leveraging, and as a result of that, potentially driving an outcome where you otherwise wouldn't get one. Lease docs are a little bit specific again, and again, not every commercial lender have it. So this is a bit of policy that sits inside of commercial lending, and it's all about, essentially, the approach here is that the lender doesn't really care about everything else that you've got going on. They don't want to know about the whole world. They don't want to know. The policy basically says, we will just look at the lease income for this commercial property to be able to support the debt that you are asking for. So it doesn't look at your whole world. It literally just looks at, well, what's the property look like? What's the lease? What does the income look like? And as a result of that, can we get comfortable around lending a particular amount of money against this property, just looking at that and not the rest of everything that this guy's got going on, or you have going on. So for people that are potentially, cashed up and looking for a good cash flow style property, potentially looking at commercial investments because of that, but aren't in a situation where you could traditionally lend. So a good example of this would be a recent retiree, right? Cashed up, sold some property down, got lots of cash in the bank, want to make a good investment into good performing property, but isn't going to satisfy a traditional lending situation. Traditional income's now gone. You're looking at retirement style income or whatever it happens to be, which of course, long-term traditional lenders don't love that kind of thing. Well, WiZDOM can absolutely assist those people in good cash positions to be able to put some money into the commercial property, also get some borrowing on the commercial property with a WiZDOM style lend, and be able to achieve a borrowing outcome or a better property than they otherwise would be able to with any other approach. And then of course, lastly, self-managed super fund lending. So again, this was one of those things that there was lots of this historically, and then a huge amount of lenders pulled out. It's more about, if you know about this, you kind of know about this, but the reality is that, most people when it comes to self-managed super fund lending think that the market is still in a situation where there aren't a lot of lenders and a lot of opportunity. I'm absolutely here to tell you the opposite these days is true, that we have seen a lot of new entrants into this marketplace. They've now, thankfully, a lot of lenders have started to see self-managed super fund lending to be the great lending that it is. And they've started to come into the market, and offer opportunity there as well. So again, it's one of those things where you can potentially borrow in a self-managed super fund, even though you couldn't satisfy a traditional lender with a traditional lending approach. It can also be a way that you can move forward with property and make, further investments that you otherwise couldn't. So look, the reality here is that it's just a case of not every bank has every type of lending, and they have no idea what goes on outside of their bank. And so please, when it comes to whenever you're talking to any financial institution, please don't assume that everything that they say or everything that they do is reflective of the entire marketplace. Because if I know anything, I know that that is absolutely not the case. And there are lots and lots and lots of different things that can potentially be done, even though the lender that you happen to be speaking to doesn't necessarily do it. Now, of course, as always, the entire WiZDOM professional team is here to do everything in our power to support your property journey. When it comes to all of this stuff, we of course are well versed in it. We've got a very good idea because we've got visibility of the entire marketplace. We get the opportunity to see all of the different types of policy, all the different types of facilities available. And I'd like to have a really great conversation with you about, potentially even if you can't necessarily satisfy a traditional model, well, are there other opportunities using, these different lending approaches that you can move forward in your journey despite that? So when you're ready, we are here, willing and able to be able to support you. So please reach out and, we will get that happening for you. Hopefully, again, that's helpful. That little bit of secret, gives you a bit of a way forward that you otherwise wouldn't have. And you find that useful. Until next time, thank you very much for your attention and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Goodbye.